but it is one that I watched recently, and it's one that I had talked to you guys about that I was going to watch was Battle Beyond the Stars. You know, the Roger Corman, one of those sci-fi movies that popped up after Star Wars. And this is I really like the film. It's kind of a standout among those little sort of exploitation, or I don't know what you want to call them, but the sort of the Star Wars, sci-fi movies that popped up. I say sci-fi a lot too, because that's just the term I like to use. I like to use sci-fi. In certain science fiction fan circles, especially in academic circles, you run into this real snobbery where sci-fi, that's the fluff. Like they would call this movie sci-fi. But if you're talking about Brave New World, don't call that sci-fi. That's science fiction, And it's gotten so pretentious to the point where now, especially in the academic world, if you're talking about a science fiction novel or work or whatever that they think should have a little bit more brevity and artistic merit, no, we call that SF. Don't call that sci-fi, it's SF. Yeah, this is a fabulous new SF novel, and it blah, 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 blah. Anytime you hear somebody use that phrase, just they're way too pretentious. It's just sci-fi. It's sci-fi. You're talking about Journey Through the Stars, and the notion that just because it's a Journey Through the Stars movie means it can't be artistic is absurd. This one's an interesting case study in that, because on the one hand, it's a Roger Corman film. He liked to cut corners. He did not like to be, spending a lot of money. He wanted to get these movies out fast, make a lot of money. So yeah, there's a lot of holes in the story here and there. On the other hand, though, it was written by the great John Sayles, Matewan, Secret of Roan Inish. I mean, he went on to be an amazing filmmaker in his own right. And apparently he wrote the script really well developed, had all these character stories developed out well. But of course, the script got cut to pieces, by the time it comes to be a Roger Corman film. So I would love to go back and read the original John Sayles script. This, cast-wise, of course, you got Robert Vaughn, George Peppard, Richard Thomas. So great cast in there. John Saxon too, I think. Yeah. And excellent cast. James Cameron got his start in filmmaking, I think, on this movie, being the art director. So a lot of great talent going into this movie, and it is based on Magnificent Seven. I teased that earlier, which is, of course, in turn based on Seven Samurai. I would say this is more based on Magnificent Seven than it is Seven Samurai, even though it's ultimately based on Seven Samurai, since Magnificent Seven itself was based on, whatever. But Magnificent Seven made a few changes to that initial story and brought some different character types in and so forth, adapting it to the Western. And it's interesting because Robert Vaughn, who from Man from Uncle, are the Marks and Harrison commercials, as I first, saw him back in the day. But he played in the Magnificent Seven, and he also plays as one of the cowboys, one of the mercenaries hired to come protect this planet in this movie. And it's interesting continuing that thread. So Robert Vaughn ties Magnificent Seven to Battle Beyond the Stars. George Peppard, who went on to play Hannibal in the A-Team. And Hannibal itself, a lot of people don't realize, or A-Team itself, people don't realize is actually based on the Magnificent Seven, especially the pilot. Instead of rounding up cowboys or samurai or mercenaries, they round up these, ex-soldiers on the run from the law, these Vietnam soldier specialists run from the law to help this town besieged by bikers, and that's how A-Team got its start. And that's the premise of A-Team, that it's, and shows like that, even on the Leverage, that came out the next century. So, but anyway, this movie is got the same setup. It's a planet instead of a village, obviously, that's being threatened. Richard Thomas's character has to go and round up these mercenaries, gets a really cool group of them together. Movie's fun to watch, keeps you engaged. You're enjoying the scenes, you're enjoying the performances. By the end, you do feel like, so that person's just out now. Wait. I wanted a little bit more development. And that's because of the things in the script that got cut. So it's, it's a Roger Corman film. You're not expecting, Shakespeare on the screen in terms of, perfect story, no holes whatsoever or anything like that. But it's fun. It does what the film is promising. All the film pretends to be is a good sci-fi flick. And it does that very well. I've got a nice Steelbook copy here, which is pretty sweet. And I know everybody sees Richard Thomas and thinks John Boy, but every time I saw the Waltons on the TV growing up, that was my cue to change the channel, because it was just so epically boring. Even though I grew up in Walton country, like what's his name, Earl Hamner, the guy who wrote the books on which the Walton series or whatever is based or whatever. I grew up around his actual home country. My aunt actually owned a store, a convenience store on the original site of the Ike Gotzi store in the Waltons or whatever, on which the show was based. So, but I just found it so crazy boring. But Richard Thomas is forever, I'm forever a fan of his because of his work in the original 1989 It miniseries. That's the only It series for me when it comes to film versions, anyway. Yeah, Dr. Y, Rebel Moon is the same thing as Battle Beyond the Stars, but it fails epically. We could do a whole stream on that at some point. At some point I will, because Rebel Moon tries to do the whole Magnificent Seven, setup too. Let's gather together our seven challengers or whatever. And it fails. It fails if you do this. But this is the I don't know what you want to call the archetype, the league, the group, the gathering. And, it's been popular ever since, Jason and the Argonauts, mythologically speaking, or our author, King Arthur and his, Knights of the Round Table, when you get a good group, a good super team, so to speak. But if you're going to tell a story about the entire team, yeah, a lot of things need to be taken into context. You've really got to have somebody who handles writing teams well. That's one of the reasons why Marvel's The Avengers was such a hit in 2012. Because Joss Whedon had always been somebody who wrote a team very well. Whether it was Firefly, whether it was the teams that he wrote on Buffy or Angel or whatever, he was good at writing a group dynamic, and keeping each character a certain arc, keeping each character a certain time. And that's something that apparently Zack Snyder's not able to do, given his work on Justice League, Rebel Moon, and so forth. Cool setups, cool ideas. It still all depends on execution. That's the thing about writing. Anybody can have a great idea. Some people don't like to hear that, but yeah, anybody can have a great idea. A writer has trained to be able to execute that idea, develop it well, actually create the story, and that's the work of writing. But